Okay, for the record, I don't have an Ant-Man costume, but he is on this shirt right there. Look at that, little Ant-Man. All right, that's the closest I could do. Okay, let's go. Jump into this one, do it quickly. So Ant-Man and the Atom are two characters that can shrink down from a normal size to a ant size. And what are the things that they can do as a result of that? Well, how does Ant-Man do it? He uses these things called Pym particles that they never really explain. Some adaptations say that he takes some of his body mass and shifts it into another dimension so he can be smaller. Other things say he takes all the mass that's in his body and shrinks it down so that that ant-sized person still weighs the same amount as a person. So when he punches someone, he hits with the force of a bullet. Well, in the movies, they've kind of done this inconsistently. Sometimes he'll jump on like a gun or a person and he'll run along it. Well, if you had like a 90-kilo person jump onto something you're holding, you're going to drop that thing, but that doesn't happen in the movie. Sometimes he'll jump onto something and he'll fall straight through it because he's that heavy and he hits it with that sort of pinpoint precision straight through a floor. Other times he doesn't, so it's very inconsistent. How do they do it? You'd have to do up a slide there, some video clips and pictures, okay? So here's a problem with this, okay? There's something called the square-cubed law in physics, okay? And what it is that as things get bigger, their surface area is a square of their growth factor, but their volume is cubed, okay? Galileo discovered it, and there he is there. So to put that another way, if you make yourself 10 times larger, your muscles get 100 times as big physically, but you have to carry 1,000 times more weight. So even though you're increasing it by 10 times the size, you're actually increasing it by 1,000 times the weight. That's why elephants look like elephants and not giant mice. You can't just scale up animals and expect them to work. So you can't do what they do in the movie, which is take an ant and make it the size of a horse, okay? Because that ant's body, it's not going to cope with that. Okay, so here's something looking at Ant-Man when he becomes Giant Man, okay, using this square cubed law, and it's done in American pounds rather than kilos, but you'll get the idea. If you had a 200-pound man and you changed it to 10 times its size, okay, you multiply its original weight by 10 for height, 10 for width, and 10 for depth, and that's why it's cubed. Okay, so if you're going to grow 6 foot tall Pym up to 60 foot tall, which he does in that Captain America Civil War there, where he's grabbed War Machine, he's 60 feet tall there. Okay, he is going to now, it says that he can lift 50 tons, except, he now weighs 200,000 pounds. Since his bones can only support a fraction of that weight, bones and muscles are things that have like what we call a finite bearing load, okay? They can only cope with a certain amount of weight before they don't work or they rip or they tear. That's why athletes and people doing sport get injuries, okay? Our bones and our muscles can only cope with a certain thing. So it's not as easy as just making something bigger. Okay, since his bones can only support a fraction of that weight, he's reduced to a 100-ton bloated sack of protoplasm. Okay, so his body would fall in on itself. It wouldn't be able to cope with that. Gross. All right, there's a little clip on it, okay, which is cool. That looks at some of the things that we wouldn't be able to do because one of the things he does is he'll shrink down and he'll talk to people, but you wouldn't be able to hear his voice. So they look at that in this clip. The other thing they didn't write in the movies, they don't do it right in the comics. As you see here, he wears this little suit with his mouth open. If you shrank down to that big, you would have great difficulty breathing, okay, because oxygen particles are a certain size and you've reduced yourself right down to that size. So that's why in the movie he has a mask that regulates his oxygen and he can't shrink down without that helmet being down. So they get some of that right. They do cover some of it, but they don't cover all of it. The other thing, they talk about shrinking a tank down, and the Dr. Pym carries the tank on his keys, his set of car keys, and then he shrinks it, he puts it back to its normal size, and it's